Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Better Body Radio. We are back. So this is episode number 36. As you guys are probably aware, for those that listen to the show regularly, we have been away for a good number of weeks, and that's primarily my fault. Reason why is that I wanted to take a little bit of time away because recently taken on a few more clients, both online and in person, and I also recently just started studying the RTS certification with Integra Education in London. So RTS, for those who don't know, is Resistance Training Specialist. It's very, very in-depth, very technical biomechanics and exercise mechanics knowledge. Absolutely loving it so far. I'm 4 or 5 weeks in, but the study load is quite heavy. So it was kind of roughly anywhere between 3 to 6 hours of studying a week. And that might not sound like a lot, but that's just the videos to watch. And then, of course, we've got the group call we've got to do, which I'm actually going on in 15 minutes. We do on a Tuesday evening. And then, of course, got to actually take time to go over the notes and synthesize some of the information, think about where it applies, where does it apply in the gym environment, all that type of stuff. And then I've also been really making strides in getting my training mentorship or coaches, muscle mechanics mentorship for trainers in the UAE and the Gulf region, kind of off the ground. We're so close. We're so ready to get that up and going. So I needed just a little bit of time, a little bit of headspace. And unfortunately, the podcast had to just be put on the back burner. But we are back and really making a solid move to get another at least 35 episodes out. We had a good run of 35 episodes initially quite consistently. So we're looking to get at least the same amount out now consistently. We've got some incredible guests lined up. I'm so excited to interview some of these guests. But this is going to be our first flying solo episode, first regular Better Body Radio episode. And today we're going to talk about how to navigate and handle the Christmas holiday period. Now, for a lot of people, they're maybe wondering, like, what the hell am I going to do about Christmas? That's usually a time where there's lots of Christmas parties, work functions, events. And if you're really unlucky, you get people who've got birthdays in December as well. Lucky or unlucky, depends on your perspective, I guess. I just got more presents to buy, right? And more things to do. But I guess we wanted to really just do a short episode. There's first of all, a reintroduction to get the podcast back out there. But secondly, I know a lot of clients already have started discussing with me about their, Christmas plans, and maybe they're already feeling potentially a little bit anxious about the Christmas period. How am I going to navigate it? I've got like 4 or 5, dinners or 4 or 5 events during that period. Then there's actual Christmas Day. Then there's New Year's Eve, and there's all the different thoughts around like how the hell am I going to navigate this? So I thought I would share just what our thoughts are, what you're likely going to see out on social media over this coming period, but also just potentially just a bit of a different perspective to potentially what you're going to see from some other people out there. Now, there's already a lot of coaches within my network that are giving fantastic advice around the Christmas period. So I'm going to do my bit to share my point of view and how I'm going to approach this with many of my clients, as well as, what might just potentially just be a bit more realistic over this period of time. So let's dive in. So what are you going to see over the Christmas period? Well, on social media especially, you're going to see a ton of trainers and online coaches promote this shred for Christmas, or 6 weeks or 8 weeks, get absolutely ripped and shredded, best shape of your life before Christmas. And I've got very mixed feelings about this. I've got the same mixed feelings about this as I do about any typical 8 to 12 week transformation that you see across the rest of the year. And really, this is no different. If you think about what a lot of these challenges are, they're just the same stuff that they're doing any other time of the year. It's just that they're packaged up in a little package, like a little Christmas present of, right, well, let's get you in the best shape of your life over 8 week, 12 week period leading up to Christmas. And unfortunately, the people who tend to do most of these things are also the same people who fall off the wagon and are doing the same thing to get ready for holiday in the summer and all that sort of stuff. Now, again, that's just a generalization. There are people who do these challenges and they get fantastic results, and it is the very thing that kind of creates momentum and really kickstarts that process for them. So my thought on this is that the majority of the programs that are going to be out there, they're not going to be individualized enough for a goal. And they're also not going to be looking long-term enough. So often a lot of the approaches during many of these plans will just be, exercise less, exercise more, eat less. And that's literally just the energy balance equation. But for any coach worth their salt, we know there's a lot more to the picture than that. We understand that, 8 to 12 weeks is very much just a very short period within a much longer term roadmap. And like the way we do things at the Better Body Collective, and I won't labor the point because we've spoken about this in previous podcasts, there's one of our episodes, if you look back through our episodes, where we talk about the importance of having a journey and a roadmap. Well, we would kind of class something like an 8 to 12 week mini phase as very much that. A fat loss phase for us, very few people are going to get as far as they want to with a fat loss phase or a physique recomposition period. within 8 to 12 weeks. Now, are there some people who can get a lot out of that? 100% for sure there are. And we see this with companies like M10 and Ultimate Performance who do a lot of these kind of 8 and 12 week transformations. But the reality is what you've also noticed that with these businesses is that they're also doing a lot more longer term transformations because they're starting to understand and realize that most people, and certainly from my time and experience being at Body Fitness here in Dubai for 11 months, very few people, but I would say probably not, maybe 5% of the people that walk through the door were actually ready to go through an 8 to 12 week transformation. The reality is that most people, it's going to take at least that much time just to get them prepped and ready and to get their health and their physiology in a much more responsive place to actually handle the rigors of a fat loss phase or a physique transformation. So I guess the first message for everyone thinking about doing an 8 to 12 week, or obviously now it'll be more like 8 weeks, kind of, shred for Christmas type plan, is just to understand you need to set your expectations for yourself. What can you realistically achieve within an 8 week period? Now, that's just the time frame. Then we have to look at what we're willing to sacrifice, what we're looking to willing to give up, and understand that, any other time of the year, you would be having to look at, right, well, say I'm someone who goes out and drinks on both days of the weekend. That's obviously not going to be very conducive to a body transformation. So you would be looking to taper that down, or you'd be looking to at least forego for a period of time going out and doing lots of drinking on the weekend. For example, that's just an example of one sacrifice. Now, if you were to do that, then it's very, very understandable and realistic to think, right, well, if I cut those things out, I'm going to drastically cut down on calories. I'm going to drastically cut down on the other effects that alcohol is going to have in my system, or excess alcohol consumption in terms of my, hunger and satiety signaling, in terms of hydration, in terms of cognition, in terms of food decisions. All of these things that are all there would be off the table. Now, that's at any other time of the year where there might be things going on. Now, imagine now you've got the Christmas period where you've got, work dinners, you've got outings with friends, you've got family stuff going on, you've got the actual Christmas Day and New Year's Eve themselves. You're actually going into a period where there's far more distraction and far more potential to go off track than there is probably any other time of the year, bar the summer holidays when you're traveling and you're away on holiday for 1 or 2 weeks. So I think the first thing to think of is that 8 to 12 weeks is hard enough to get a really tangible change, but then make it really one of the most busy social periods of the year, and you're just making that challenge just infinitely harder. So I just think that's something that you really ought to consider when you're looking at these physique transformations, is just really think about, is this actually a realistic period of time to go after something like this? Now, that's just assuming that you are going to stick to a really solid 8 to 12 week plan. The next thing to think about is, okay, say you are, in a position where actually everything's kind of in line and you kind of feel like, actually, this is a really good time for me to just have a solid push. That's cool. And I even had like a woman reach out on Instagram today who wanted to do that. And that's perfectly fine. For example, she was going to be on garden leave. That's great. The thing is that, she's also probably someone, based on what I've seen so far from her application, is that she's not someone who's going to be going out drinking a lot. She's not someone who's got a lot of social events on, based on at least what I saw in one of the questions we asked. So in that case, it's actually going to be a good period of time for her. However, the first thing I would say to someone like that is, right, we can make really solid pushes up during this period, but this is just going to be a very small part of a much bigger, milestone, a much bigger roadmap, where that 12-week point or 8-week point would literally just be a checkpoint within a much bigger journey. So the challenge is, if you're someone who actually can get really dialed in, you're someone who can be really focused, or you're really realistic about the type of results you can expect to achieve during that time, then it might be something that is actually really potentially really positive for you, so long as you've already got a plan for what happens after it, and so long as that you're managing your expectations accordingly. So I think that's just a really big thing. Have you got a longer term plan, and have you got an environment which is actually conducive to getting really good results within that time frame? And are you someone who's starting from a decent starting point, or is this actually something that you just need to use for yourself as a period to kind of just like get things tidied up and get your habits realigned and back on track? If the answer to that is yes, great. But for most people during the Christmas period, it's not a time where consistent habits tend to be observed. It's a time where schedules are going to be a little bit all over the place. Social demands are going to be much higher. So just this is something to bear in mind. What are we going to be doing at Better Body Collective during this period? Well, with our clients, we've kind of had that discussion with many of them. Is this the best time for you to be dieting? And for those that, given that we live in the Middle East, even though Dubai is very much a Western part of the world, as far as like, yes, it's the Middle East, but Dubai is very Western in its nature. So there is a party culture here. There is alcohol consumption here. There are brunches. And in fact, if anything, for a lot of expats, where some of the only things really to do out here is to go socializing, brunching, drinking, but also potentially to work out, get in shape. There's a lot of activities as well. So a lot of people either do one end, the other, or they tend to mix and dabble in both. So I think it's not necessarily the absolute perfect environment. However, many of our clients are pretty, they really enjoy their training. They're quite health conscious. And so they're maybe already starting to think about, right, well, I'm not going to have that many nights out, but there are going to be things here and there. What can I do to plan for that? And that's exactly what we're helping them with. We're helping them with planning in advance. So for many of our clients who are going to diet during that period, who are choosing to diet, there are some that we've just said, listen, based on everything that's going on, based on the schedule you've laid out for us, it's not going to be a good time. Over the 2 weeks around the Christmas and New Year, we're going to take a 2-week diet break. We're just going to get you back to maintenance calories. You're going to, track on the days where you can be with routine, but when you've got your days where it's just time for making memories and it's just time for spending time with friends, families, and colleagues, I don't want you to stress too much. Don't eat like an asshole. Don't drink yourself to the point of oblivion, but, have a good time. Enjoy a few drinks, eat the food you want to eat, and, enjoy those 2 weeks and make memories during those 2 weeks. But then once those 2 weeks are over, because we've discussed this and we've planned this in advance, there's absolutely no reason that we are then not getting back into the traditional routine and habits and then cracking on into January. For those that are kind of quite happy to continue dieting during that time, what we've said to them is, right, that's fine, but we'll just mark off in the calendar in December and potentially even this month, November, the dates you've got events. We're going to diet. We're going to be really diligent with dieting during this period. But as soon as those days come, we already appreciate that's a non-tracking day. So you enjoy that day, but literally the moment that day is done, if the next day is a plan back on plan day, we're back on plan. And so I think a lot of it is just managing the expectations in advance, being organized and understanding what your strategies are before the days come. That's super, super key. So we've got 2 scenarios, just to reiterate with our clients. We've got those who are going to be taking diet breaks where it's just not realistic for them to be in dieting phase during the Christmas period. And we've got others that want to be really focused, disciplined, and they've kind of committed to themselves that they want to do this during the Christmas period, that they're not going to necessarily have lots of nights out with friends and colleagues and family. So they're just going to be super dialed in and maybe focus on themselves for this period. And neither's right or wrong, but it's just what the reality of the situation is. And so for them, we've kind of gave them some parameters. Okay, we'll make sure that you have a couple of days where you are enjoying time with friends and family. You might not want to go crazy, but don't worry about tracking that day. Just enjoy it. So yeah, that's what we've kind of done. So what are the key takeaways from this? Just to wrap up today's podcast and keep it a short one. Well, you're going to see all over social media ads for Christmas shreds, different challenges. Just understand that if you are going to partake in one of these things, it's just a checkpoint or it's just a small part of your journey. It's not going to take you to your end result or ideal body. Also, just make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. It's something that you're doing to help you with a bit of motivation, a bit of encouragement, a bit of accountability, and not something that you expect to achieve your dream body. Also, make sure you've got a roadmap, you've got a plan in place for after the Christmas period so that once those festivities are over, you have got something that you're ready and planning to jump back into so that you can just hit the ground running into the new year. All right. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll go into January and it will get to, 3rd week, 4th week, and all of a sudden before you know it's March and people haven't really done much. So make sure you have a plan. What we're doing for clients at Better Body Collective, simply we're just giving 2 options. Either they're going to be on a diet break during the Christmas and New Year weeks. So that's 2 weeks where they're going to be on diet breaks, or they're going to plan dates on their calendar in advance with their non-tracking days, but every other day they're on plan. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you're planning to do over the Christmas period, or if you have any questions about, certain scenarios specific to your circumstances that you maybe feel like today's podcast didn't quite cover, we'd love to hear it. Drop it in the comments to the episodes on Instagram. If you're listening on Apple Podcast, leave us a review or ask a question. If you're watching this back on YouTube, pop again questions or any feedback in the comments below. Be more than happy to hear it. And if you're listening to it on any other podcast platform, again, the best thing you can do is tag us in on your Instagram stories, and then shoot us a direct message. Let us know if you get any questions, any way we can help you. Other than that, guys, that's it for today. Thanks so much for your time. Hopefully you found this useful. Let's really enjoy the Christmas period. I'm not going to wish you Merry Christmas and Happy New Year yet because we'll record an episode closer to the time. But I wanted to get this in there in early November so that as you're 8 weeks away, you're already planning and really thinking about how to navigate the Christmas period. Speak soon, guys.